president of the institution that invited you here. I am a professor of Judaic studies at the university. I'm finishing my 50th year at Bar-Ilan University. I also am a representative of the Foreign Ministry and the Israel Rabbinate, which is under the auspices of the Ministry of Religion, in a small group that, well, doesn't matter. In a small group which is involved in interreligious dialogue. As I mentioned to a colleague who's sitting here, I regard myself as an acolyte or a student of Dayananda Saraswati, who recently passed away. I studied, he made me study under him the issues of Hinduism. About a couple of months ago, I spent a couple of weeks in South India in Namrolin monastery, a Tibetan Buddhist monastery, where they declared me a Kempo. That is to say, a sort of a teacher, and we were involved also in comparisons between certain Hindu, Buddhist, Jain hermeneutic principles of exegesis. So I'm very honored and very delighted that you all took the effort to come here to the Holy Land. It's holy for everybody, whatever religion you are affiliated with. And it's a great honor, and I truly believe that we all learn from one another when we learn about the other. Where did they put it?
Hello, everyone. My name is Daijaku Juditkins, so Daijaku. But if you don't remember, just say hello and I'll respond. I'm professor at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, which is a part of the consortium of the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. I am the director of the Buddhist Chaplaincy program. I too wear many hats, as I think many of us do. I'm a Soto Zen priest. Soto Zen Buddhism is a Japanese Buddhist tradition, Zen Buddhist tradition, and have a small temple. And I guide students through the chaplaincy program, the graduate program, and we also train Buddhist clergy. So Jodoshin, Theravada, and Zen students who are moving towards ministry. And I am the director of the Soto Zen certificate as well. So I adore being a part of the GTU community, in part because we meet together so much, and students from other schools take my classes. So my class on Zen Buddhism might include a Jesuit priest from Nigeria, a Baptist minister who is wanting to learn a little bit about Buddhism, somebody from the Center for Jewish Studies, just everybody. And they ask the best questions. So I too firmly believe that we learn more about ourselves and our own, become more deeply rooted in our own faith traditions when we listen to the other. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Tim Stevens, and I'm the university chaplain at Northwestern University in Chicago. We do not have mandatory chapel at Northwestern, but I would like to learn how to reestablish that. Eager to learn more. I work at a very diverse, religiously and in many other ways, diverse university, and increasingly diverse as the years go by. And I'm particularly interested in how we can have conversation across the various borders that we have amongst ourselves. I'm very impressed with the diversity of this group, and just really eager to have conversation and learn from each other. I really look forward to that. So yeah, I think that's. We got it on. I don't know how we got it off. There we go.
Wondrous. You get good with these things when you do so many weddings. But yes, lovely to see and meet all of you. I'm Brahmachari Sharan. Brahmachari, if you can manage that, Sharan or Oi, it works in order to get hold of me. I'm the director for Hindu Life at Georgetown University, which is the Jesuit university in Washington, D.C., Jesuit Catholic University, and therefore it makes it all the more interesting that they've hired a Hindu monk. Actually, it's the first time in history of the Catholic Church that they've hired a Hindu monk. So I do feel the weight of the 2,000 years on my shoulder anyway. But aside from the chaplaincy work that I do, I'm also a professor in this Department of Theology, teaching the Hinduism and what they call the problem of God in introductory theology course, and then in the Department of Linguistics teaching Sanskrit. That's the kind of academic hat off, the religious one on. I'm a senior monk at the Golokdham Ashram in New Delhi, which oversees about 95 Hindu temples worldwide, so about 70 to 80,000 Hindus through that. So it's a wonderful honor to be here, and I suppose in answering Rabbi Shabtai's original question, especially in Hinduism, we have the Lord saying, all paths where people worship me earnestly lead to me. We have that encoded in our religion, but we still have the, well, I'm better than you. So I would love to see how it works for others too. So, thank you.
Okay. Good. Hi everybody. My name is Andras Shula and I'm from the University of Leipzig in Germany. I have only two hats, sort of multiple hats, but really only two more or less. I'm a professor of Old Testament Hebrew Bible, that's sort of one of them, and I'm also a pastor at the Thomas Church in Leipzig. Maybe some of you know, it's sort of the holy grail of the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, because he's buried there, so that's one of the important things about Leipzig, that church, and which puts me sort of in this role of having to deal with religion from many perspectives. As a teacher, in East Germany, former communist country, it's quite a challenge because you have students who are not necessarily familiar with religion at all. They're interested in it, but there's no prior exposure to it. And you can do what 40 years of communism will do to a culture, which simply means, whatever religion it is, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or now Islam is, of course, has become more important in Germany, and if you have to build it up, it's a bottom-up, from scratch kind of approach. And that is a challenge because to someone like me who grew up in a Christian tradition, simply to become aware of the problem. And what does that mean? And how do you teach it? How do you find language so that relates to the topic of the conference, in a context where this is not simply self-understood? And so it will be interesting for me to see whether the things that I have to say, connect with any of what you are interested in, because looking at the program, it's so amazing, the different perspectives, and will be interesting for me to see, of course, what I can take with me from sacred landscapes to everything else that's on the program, because all of that will be relevant to some extent.
Good afternoon or evening, depending on how you understand time. But I'm Nikita Julius. I'm a Greek Orthodox hierarch, Metropolitan, and I'm also at the GTU and the director of the Orthodox Institute there. I'm the person who suggested that you read Bad Religion, and I hope it brought out some emotion in you, maybe some frustration, maybe a little bit of anger. While in teaching a class called Orthodoxy in Dialogue, and I'll refer to it in my presentation, I had students read a presentation from an Orthodox hierarch to a group of Anglicans in which he insulted them. It's a perfect example of bad religion. And if we're going to offer good religion, we need to move in a positive direction, knowing who we are and what we're doing and where we're going. And I think that this opportunity, this conversation, will allow us to do that, because I think that's what we do at the GTU. And because of the students and their questions, their issues, their challenges, we also begin to gain a better understanding of who we are and what we believe. I not only teach theology, in one of my hats as well, I represent the Orthodox Church on the Elijah Interfaith Foundation, if you know of it, based in Jerusalem under Rabbi Alon Goldstein, who is a dear friend, so I'm used to interfaith dialogue and conversations. I have a question that maybe you'll answer at some point. How were we selected? You don't have to answer that now.
We don't do.
I like that answer. Thank you.
I don't know, and I didn't.
Can we tell you? You all just like very interesting people to get to know. Basically, who Rolly and I wanted to get to know. So hopefully that'll happen this week.
All right. Hello, my name is Irina House. I'm here in the capacity as a wife to my husband, Dr. H. Wayne House, but I will briefly introduce myself. Currently, I'm working on 2 doctorates in Christian apologetics from 2 different universities, one in Washington, it's called Faith International College and Seminary, and the other one is in Oregon, Corban University. I have a bit of a diverse background. I was born and raised in the Soviet Union and actually became a Russian Orthodox. Upon my immigrating to the United States, I took up evangelical view, and so that's where I remain. I love to study different languages and go with my husband places, and we engage in archaeological digs, and I just love to visit different cultures. I have some criminal justice background, some psychology background, and of course theological studies. So this is a tremendous privilege to be here, and I'll pass it on to my husband.
I see it. We good? Are you ready? There's something happening. I broke it, of all people.
That's
Yes.
because it's on the wrong side.
I'm Wayne House. I live in Oregon, teach in Washington, and basically on every continent in the world except for the Antarctica. Do a lot of travel, have a research professorship I have for the last almost 20 years. I was a constitutional law professor, full professor of law for a number of years before that. And then I taught previous to that theology in Texas at a place called Dallas Seminary. Write a lot. Since I have a research professorship, I was telling you I teach 5 weeks a year at the university. The rest of the year is for writing and travel. And so I've been doing that for a long time. I've written about 40 books and hundreds of articles. And that's what I sort of do for fun. And they call it also a living, but I would do it if they didn't pay me anyway. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't even know how you found me, but it's great to be found sometimes because this is an interesting group. I enjoy interesting groups. This is my 35th trip to Israel. I'm beginning to learn it. I've stayed here and studied before as well. I know the area pretty well. And I must say I usually don't associate with such a diverse group, although I have done, I have a dictionary coming out on world religions in the fall with Baker and a big, almost 500-page book on world religions that I wrote. So I do understand something about it, but I've not, it's funny, you can write about something and study it and research it, but not have the opportunity to have much association with people sometimes about whom you're writing. And I attempt, as someone who is a professor, actually professor of theology, law, and culture, work in all these areas, while I have considerable conviction about certain things, I think it's very important to be a listener and see what people are saying, and even if I don't agree, to be respectful. And so I must say, and you'll see tomorrow, because I'm first on. I saw that and I didn't know what Raleigh was doing to me. But when I looked at that, I began to think, you know, I looked at the program title and I tried to create something that would seem to be interactive with that. And I hope that, that this is really be a good time to learn for me and also to share ideas that I have. So.
My name is Eileen Jones. I'm a wife tag-along, but I'll explain a little bit about myself before we go to him. I retired as a nurse midwife a little over 10 years ago, but my very first degree was in religion, and I subsequently got a master's in religion in tandem with being a midwife. And I'm currently working on a PhD in theology through the University of Bar-Ilan. I'll say my faith journey has been complicated, but looking back, I don't regret any of the steps that were taken to bring me to where I am. And the reason I say that is because I believed as a young person, and I believe to this day, that all religions are going after the same thing. And I believe in my heart there are more bridges than there are not bridges. And again, it is a question of exposure and dialogue that gives us any hope of being able to talk to one another and learn more about one another and without threatening our own database, as it were. I think we can do it. It's just going to take the grace of God, let's put it that way.
My name is John Jones. I could have put my glasses on and made that easier, but and I didn't. Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is John Jones. I'm the professor and most recently chair of the philosophy department at Marquette University. This is my fourth tour as a department chair, including one in the Department of Physics where they needed a little bit of tender, loving care. And I have to say, it was one of the richest experiences of my life at Marquette University to see how two very disciplines who have two very different ways of knowing the world organize their department and their academic life in ways that have lots of overlaps but lots of distinctiveness. And actually some of the most rich conversations of recent years that I've had about the interaction of faith and reason was with one of my colleagues who's an associate professor in the physics department. Philosophers are a little bit reticent today to talk about those things. I also work with the Orthodox Christian students on campus. Before I took over as chair, I was affiliated with campus ministry and I have pastoral responsibilities for 2 parishes in the Milwaukee area. I'm a priest of the Orthodox Church in America. It's one of the autocephalous or self-governing groups, one of the many groups around the world that constitute the Orthodox Christian Church. And it was a reasonably late ordination. I was ordained in 2009. When I first came to Marquette, and I've been at private university, public universities as well, what I liked about Marquette was that it created an institutional space for the engagement of faith and reason. It wasn't expected just to be privatized. And I would say initially that space was very robust and well populated. It was suffused with a particular Roman Catholic Jesuit president, but the Jesuits were always very good about creating a space for multiple faiths. And over the years, I'd say that space has changed and it's become oddly thinner. And the way I discovered that was before I became chair, I was involved in a group called Affiliated Ministry. Campus Ministry had gotten together a group of non-Roman Catholic people who were involved in working with students. Some were clerics, some were lay people. And we had lots of really, really interesting interactions among ourselves, not just in terms of academic theology, but in terms about our own faith experience and our own faith journey. And it made me realize how sort of thin the atmosphere had gotten on the academic side of the university. And in fact, everybody on the campus ministry side noticed how thin the atmosphere had gotten on the academic side. There's lots and lots of sort of academic theological discussion, which is a kind of faceless experience where people interact, but the engagement is not. People interacting in terms of their own faith experiences, their own traditions, their own practices of worship, and so forth. And it seems to me, while the space is there, it's a lot harder to negotiate because there's a lot more reticence to engage in that kind of dialogue. So this conference really, really interested me. And I noticed that originally it was the religious university and academic secular context, and Marquette fits into that. It is a Jesuit university, and yet the secular context has an odd way of defining and not defining the university. So I'm really looking forward to this. And as he said, I'm not sure how you found me, but I'm delighted to be here, especially to have escaped a snowstorm and to have 70-degree weather out there.